Take you back to a time when families used to be outside, when kids used to roam the streets, when you used to say hi to your neighbor and actually knew who you were talking to, when people actually had conversations. The easier time, pre-gentrification. Growing up on my block, everyone used to be outside, and it was through there that we learned how to have social interactions with each other. You would get in trouble outside, you would have a good time outside. Things were easier. The Black Door. Lived there my whole life. Didn't really realize things were changing until about middle school. Noticed that people were moving out. Noticed that houses were going under renovation or houses were being sold off. Didn't really understand until about the end of high school, beginning of college, because gentrification was starting to happen in other parts of Brooklyn. It wasn't only Park Slope anymore. Kind of sucks because as a kid you don't think that these things exist, such as redlining and the changing of neighborhoods. But it's a real thing. Class and money, race as well. The rest of 6th Avenue. In the White House, Mary used to live there. The Blue House, my godparents. The White House, Madeline and her Ecuadorian family, as well as the other Dominican family on the second floor, I believe. The Brown House, the Chinese family lives there, and they actually still live there because they own the house. Mary sadly passed away, so her house was sold off. And in the Blue House, my godmother passed away, and then he's not my godfather, more so the husband of my godmother, he sold off the house and moved in with his family a couple blocks away. But in selling the house, they actually converted it into this interesting looking thing that actually stands out from the rest of the block, which isn't a bad thing, but at the same time just shows the aspects of gentrification. The family that lives in that house doesn't really talk to anybody. They keep to themselves. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's okay, but it kind of affects the whole sense of community. The people who live in the White House, I don't even know who they are anymore. And the people who live in the house with the brown door, I don't know. On 9th Street and 5th, there stands a record and tape center. This has been here since I was a kid. They usually line up records on the outside as well as old VHSs and tapes. And they're true to the world of discounts. 50 cents, 25 cents, $1, $2 and $5. You can get almost anything you want in there, especially throwbacks from the 90s. I'm surprised it stand the test of time. I'm surprised it's still there. I'm pretty sure the owner probably owns the building. There's no way that a shop selling 50-cent tapes is making it in an area where right next door someone's probably paying $15,000 a month to be there. But to me, it's nostalgic. It's an example of a mom and pop winning over gentrification in the rest of the neighborhood. I'm really rooting for the little guy here. Condos. That seems to be the only thing that they're building nowadays. These huge structures that upon building look like battle forts of oppression, more so for the people around them, because they can't afford to live in them. New people come in and change the neighborhood, change the culture of things. It's like just erasing a whole era of people, in a sense. But it doesn't matter because that's where the money's at. To me, these condos are kind of an eyesore. They all look the same. Most of them have the same amenities. And just know for a fact you'll be paying a lot of money. I don't think that's something that I want in my neighborhood. They just keep building and building and just creating homes that are just not livable for the people who live around them. The funny thing is that 80% of the condos in the city they don't even have people in them. They're just empty. A hurry to build something that potentially is just going to sit there doesn't make sense to me. The condo right next door to my house looks extravagant from the outside, and I'm sure it's probably extravagant in the inside as well. People are paying for this extravagance. Last time I checked, it was about a little over $3,200 or something like that to live there. And people come in and they move out. Why? They can't afford it. In their brain, they casted this sort of dream of having and wanting to live in Park Slope, and they would do it at all costs. But yet, does it make sense? I don't think so. It's like choosing between living somewhere and potentially not owning something, but having the luxury of just saying you're there. This is a picture of the waterfront over in Dumbo before all the revitalizing and renovating and the extravagance is happening over there. It's a time before the rents spiked up over there. It's a time before richer families were living in the area. It's a time when that area wasn't so much seen as even a good place to be at, in a sense. But yet you go over there now and you don't even recognize the area. I'm not totally saying that gentrification is a bad thing, because it is a good thing. It does bring money to a neighborhood. It does, add amenities and things that weren't there in the past. But at the same time, it's changing a whole culture of things. People are moved and displaced, and shops are displaced, and corporations come, and the sort of soul of a neighborhood is kind of lost and turned into this superficial machine. And no, this isn't for everywhere, but it is for a lot of places. Oh, Gowanus. I remember a time when I was told basically not to cross over 4th Avenue because 3rd Avenue was a unworthy zone. It definitely was an area that you weren't supposed to be in, but if you were there, it was cool because you probably lived there your whole life and you knew everybody around you. But if you didn't, it was more so on the sketchier side. A lot of older Italian people live over there, and there's a really sense of family and community. But I've noticed that that's been now narrowed down to only a couple blocks. Because, once again, people have come in and rents have increased and people have moved out. A lot of the older generation are, not doing so well health-wise, and their houses are being placed in hands that sometimes isn't of the family. It's, being sold off to somebody else, and then they come in and do other things with it, which changes the community once again. And people will always go to Gowanus no matter how much they're paying to live there, which I think is crazy because they have the Gowanus Canal that stinks in the summer over there. They have flooding that happens all the time because all the water goes just straight down to 3rd and 2nd Avenue. It will always be in high demand. Gowanus isn't too far from the city. You can basically see it from your rooftop. And people want to be close. I get it. But at what cost? Over in Bed-Stuy, the projects still stand. But around them are the newly renovated condos. And it's just so interesting to me, the placement of things. How on the top there is a sense of poverty, a sense of restriction, a sense of no mobility. But on the bottom, there's wealth, there's a sense of progression, there's support, and the two of them are on the same block, in the same area, the same neighborhood. It's crazy. Yet where there isn't a condo, there are open lots. Just sitting there, waiting. Usually in places where there's nothing else around it either. Everyone around it doesn't have much. This one is in East New York. And I could think of 1,000 things that they can do with it. 1,000 may be a lot, but I could think of a lot of things they can do with it. It could be a community garden. It could be a play place, a playground, a center. But instead it's just rotting there until someone decides to buy it. But gentrification hasn't fully hit East New York yet. Some people still have a stigma against it, that it's an area where you just don't go to. Things are changing though. It's such a common sight to see those signs on doors nowadays. NYC construction signs. It's like a bittersweet thing because at the end of the day, I don't know if what's coming is just a simple renovation or just the tear down of the building and just the change of the area. I'm kind of scared for my neighborhood. I don't know if it's something that is going to stay. I know it's not going to be the same at all, and I know neighborhoods change, but is it going to be something where is it going to be a place where I'm going to want to grow my kids? I'm already seen as a stranger in my own place. People think I don't live where I should, I guess. But it doesn't matter because I've lived there my whole life. My father's lived there his whole life. And we're just going to be here. We're not going anywhere.